practice and preparation sometimes is messy, right? It really is. Like that's why you're practicing something. You're getting reps. And I think that, I'm not a neuroscientist, but I think that your brain, it needs a couple of paths, some neural pathways to get opened up. All right, that's, in my public speaking, I pride myself on linking a story to a strong concept that's a real take home that links into another story. It's, it's a symphony, it's a braided, arc throughout. It's not like these distinct things. And sometimes it takes a second, like those transitions. I love to study, public speaking in general. I love the art of it. You notice it if you really study it closely, but the average audience isn't feeling into it. But it's in the transitions. It's in these moments in between that you can move from one concept to the next seamlessly that ends up driving something powerfully. And that can feel very like stilted in your own living room. So I think part of it is literally like the neural pathways getting built. Like the terrible rep that I had in my living room actually was a foundational block to a positive outcome. And then moreover, I think, as we've talked about, it's that actual, that feeling and knowing myself. I appreciate the sort of what you pointed out there is I've had enough practice at lots of different things to go like, I'm someone that like put the lights on, put me on stage, roll me out there, and it actually comes out better. Not like, it's going to be worse in this environment, but trusting myself. I've built that trust in myself to go like, I actually perform the best when there are stakes, again, in those environments. So I think those two things happen. One, the practice actually did inform that and allowed me to like, that didn't work. Like sometimes the best thing you can do for anything, any business, any, goal or whatever is to go like, that didn't work, or, I don't like to do that, or that's not my zone of genius. Like you need to actually figure out what doesn't work oftentimes to figure out what works. And so that bad practice helped me to feel into some of those things. But also it's then just feeling into that trust, taking that deep breath and being like, you know what, like let's jump off the cliff. Like this is going to be even more embarrassing if you fail in front of, thousands of these banking executives that paid you a bunch of money to be here, but you're never going to know unless you get that shot at it. And so instead of being afraid of that, it's actually stepping into the fire of that and leaning into it. And I think that elevated my game in this case.
So what I'm learning here, and I want to capture it, is if you think today you suck and tomorrow you want to get better, there are two steps as of now that we have discovered. One is really build an understanding of yourself, of how you perform as a person. And it could be put the spotlight on, it could be go internal, do whatever you need to do, right? Everybody's got their process. And the second is just do the damn thing. Yeah. If you'll do it, you'll get reps in. It'll probably suck. It'll probably not land. You're also a professional speaker, so probably you going from really shitty to really good in 3 days is because you've done this maybe a billion times at this point, right? But if you've never spoken in front of people, expect the first one to suck as well. Like it's not going to land probably, even with all the practice in the world, because the way you are performing or who you're performing for is the first time for you. So that is still a wrap.
Well, and that's funny. We're talking about speaking, but another really funny story comes to mind. I'll share it quickly. Early on in my professional speaking career, I'd done a couple of small little speeches here and there, but after my first big world record project in 2016, one of the top speaking bureaus reaches out to me. It's the first time like a big bureau had ever reached out to me. We've got a client that wants to hear you speak. They saw you on TV and like, do you do public speaking? And, they were like, and what's your fee? And I like thought of like the highest number that I could possibly think of, and they agreed to it. And I was like, oh man, like it probably should have been 3x that. So that was a learning process on the business side, but that's not the point of the story. So then I go to this speech. It's at the Ritz-Carlton in Philly. Mm-hmm. And, I'm in, at the time, I'm 38, almost 39 now, but this is, 7 years, so it's probably my early 30s at this point. And, it's a nice event. There's 1,000 executives. It's in the Ritz-Carlton, and there is a professional speaker doing the opening keynote, and I'm doing the closing keynote. And Jenna, my wife, she was saying to me, she goes, let's go watch the other guy speak. Let's go see the other guy speak in the morning. And so we walk in there, and this is my first like big speech, and this guy named Mick Ebling, who I'm still friends with, incredible speaker, walks on stage and just slays it. Like just absolutely crushes this speech. Like he's a pro of all pros. He's got people laughing, he's got people crying, like full standing ovation, whatever. And Jenna looks over at me afterwards and she was like, you're screwed. Like you're completely screwed. Like, and I was like, what do you mean? She was like, I mean, you've given a couple of speeches before, but that we just saw, it's like a high school football
like a
player going to an NFL game and being like, we're going to put you in there like next. And sure enough, like I got through the speech, it was fine, but it like went on 20 minutes too long and like it wasn't perfect, whatever. But the point being is like, those are one of those moments where it's like, to your point, it's like, you got to just get in the arena. Like, you can't be a professional speaker until someone's like, I'm paying you to speak. And then you got to go out there and like, maybe it's not your best speech like ever, but you got to try. Like, I love the phrase, like, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good, right? Like, you got to get those reps in. And so, yes, now after thousands of other speeches and that confidence that's been built over a decade of professional speaking and all the things, I love the industry. I've thought about it a lot. I've, sharpened my craft, etc. And like, there's always a good lesson in like, don't compare your own, chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20. What I did is I walked over to Mick Ebling. I said, hey man, can I get your phone number? And he was like, yeah, sure, man. Like, and I was like, I'm new to this. Can I call you later this week and just talk? And like, he ended up mentoring me. We had a couple like 1 hour conversations. He just helped me. And he was like, oh, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? I wasn't afraid to say like, hey man, you're way better than me at this thing that I'm trying to learn about. Can you teach me? And that was hugely valuable. And we're still friends to this day.